We are back like we never left. We're so happy to be here with each of you today. Please bear with us as we add everyone to the stage here, and we begin our kickoff here at this next roundtable discussion. I'll be your guest moderator, and my name is Christopher Lafayette, founder of GatherVerse Emerging Technologists, and I'm so happy to be with each of you today. We have a lot to be able to unpack at this particular roundtable discussion on focusing on global XR, the obstacles and opportunities, and I might add the challenges of XR that's deployed everywhere. We're so happy to have each of you that are with us here at GatherVerse.live, especially here for this day two. I'm surprised to see all of you, being that here in the West, at least it's the summer, but here we are. And we're happy to see everybody else at the various social streams that we're broadcasting from. We have a extraordinary roundtable discussion to be able to lean into. Panelists, I'd ask that you mute your mics until called upon. And I'm going to go round robin here to be able to ask who you are and what inspired you to be here today to join us for this particular discussion. We have a lot to be able to go through and to unearth here. There are topics and questions that you're going to see on the actual screen. Just be prepared that we're going to go off topic, if you will, on the particular questions. We're going to create a semi-hive mind, and let's chop wood. Chantal, welcome.
Hello, Christopher. Thank you so much for having me. So a quick introduction and what inspired me to be here. I am an identity architect. So I am not a tech guru. I have been listening to all the tech gurus and I feel a little bit out of my depth. However, I'm passionate as an identity architect. I am passionate about helping people come back to their humanity, figure out what's holding them back and move forward in the world. One of the biggest challenges we have in the world is connection. We're feeling this universal loss of connection. Now, XR, extended reality, AI, all of these things can deepen this connection.
Sure.
But it can also create more disconnection. So that's what inspired me to be here tonight. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Chantal, for that introduction. And we're going to be able to pass this on to Obagafan. But let me just say this. I think it's really important to say, we did bring this up yesterday too, is that GatherVerse really enjoys having a non-technologist here with us and to arrive with us, because we need to have a much more expansive, bright-eyed perspective on the different lens narrative that are arriving from everyone around the world. And so, Chantal, you're definitely in the right place. We greet you. Obagafan, please introduce yourself briefly and what inspired you to be here today. You might want to check your mic. All right, let's go.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you, Christopher. Everyone, amazing Professor William Jackson. That's my mentor from Florida. And everyone, I want to say the name very well. I want to call respect by calling your name, Chantal Edward Meni. It's amazing panel. So I am Obamafon Udambat. You can say OBF for short, OBF. And I am the head of AI at Innovation Labs. It's a startup in Nigeria called Innovation Labs, a SaaS and EdTech startup. So at iLabs, we build virtual try-ons for e-commerce. So that is where my XR and VR experience come in. In the early days of the metaverse, I tried my hands with Mixamo, with Unity Engine, where we do virtual immersive experiences. We apply it in education. And my wonderful prof here, William Jackson, was my coach in those days, where he trained us on how to do so many amazing things in the virtual spaces. And now at my startup, we build virtual try-ons for e-commerce. Right. So,
Obagafan, let me ask you, what inspired you to be here today?
Yeah, I am here to contribute on different ways that we can solve the obstacles that are there and also present opportunities in the XR spaces.
Excellent. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for unpacking, and we'll continue and we'll be back to you shortly. William, you're up.
Thank you. I'm just glad to be here with some amazing people to learn from. As an educator and business owner, a lot of works that IED and I do are in the community, not just locally here in Jacksonville, Florida, but internationally. So we share our knowledge, we share our abilities, we share our resources, like OPF was talking about, working and mentoring and helping youth, teens, and young adults around the world. Because as you mentioned multiple times, Christopher, about the humanity of technology, and we need to keep that first. And it can only happen if we're mentoring young people and young adults and inspiring them to learn as much about the technology and use it ethically. So thank you.
Here, I wholeheartedly agree. And thank you for the service that you and your wife do around the world. It's rather inspiring. We're happy to be able to learn more about your present happenings of the things that you're doing and have been doing for some time. Edward, we're happy to route over to you, sir.
All right. I'm Edward Prentice III. And I used to just say Edward Prentice, but my son just graduated from Purdue Mechanical Engineering, and he's Edward Prentice IV. So he tells me, say your whole name, Dad, so we don't get mixed up. I told him I might be around for the 5th, but not the 6th. I'm the founder of YEP Nation, which stands for Youth Empowerment Program. And our mission is to empower women to get into these AI and metaverse spaces, especially in these political times. A lot of women are shunted out of all the technology spaces. I'm a pretty spiritual guy. So the Lord led me from sleeping in my car, and a young lady back then, I wasn't able to save her due to the fact that I didn't have resources from sleeping in my car. So then he enabled me to build a multi-million-dollar organization doing Baxter and BP and whatnot. So then I wound that down to start up YEP Nation, built a platform that we will talk about here, and to train young women quickly. And the reason I really for meeting Christopher is he's so deep into all of this, and that's my whole mission. We're trying to get the women into these platforms. And the reason I wanted this one, because that's a key issue, is how do you develop platforms to where it can go to all of the different audiences?
Thank you so much, Edward, and shout out to YEP Nation. I'm looking forward to chopping wood in the future. We're doing some good things together. Meni, you're up.
Yeah, good day, everyone. Good day, Prof. Good day, Christopher. It's nice seeing you again.
Pleasure.
Yeah, but this time I'm out of Nigeria. I'm in Canada, and I'm speaking right from Ontario. That's the province. I choose to be here for another reason, to extend to all young ones the opportunity for them to master the act of knowing what they learn in school. Because I know the reason behind virtual reality, extended reality, is to make learning more easy and fun. So I believe that when we introduce edutainment, which is education with entertainment, into our educational airspace, it will make kids have more interest going to school. And I believe strongly my being here is to contribute to the question we had on ground, issue that relates to global gaps. They're trying to bridge the global gaps.
Yes, but Meni, we won't touch on that yet. Give me the inspiration of what brought you here today. We'll roll in that in a moment.
All right. I'm inspired to share my thoughts and also to see how education will have a new face, that is digitalizing education.
You couldn't have said that better. I actually agree with that statement in more ways than one. Meni, we're happy to be able to have you here. We'll explore further on what you just said, and we may even kick off on that. But first, we'd like to be able to introduce Thomas. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me here again. So I'm Thomas. I run R&H Creative Advocacy and Storytelling. My mission really is to use storytelling and creativity in a variety of complex, but also fun and motivating ways for the community. I work a lot with the neurospicy and mental health community, but I also do a lot of different events, and technology is a big part of that. I'm a believer, especially in this world that's changing so quickly, we have to be able to use everything effectively, compassionately, and with purpose. And I'm also a big believer in accountability and technology as well to serve people. And so I'm really excited to be here today to share my thoughts, but also learn from those around me. and also explore ways in which we can help inspire the community together.
Excellent, and welcome back. Is happy to hear these expressions. I truly think that mental wellness and mental health can be a tremendous benefit towards innovation, whilst at the same time, poor mental health can be a severe barrier to entry, if you will, especially when we think about accessibility. Panel, shall we begin? So I sit here and we're about to explore on these things of what are the challenging things that are pressing with us with XR. Let's get a broader scope of the narrative here. We build an extended reality, many of us, and whether we like it or not, audience, many of you will be building and have already been contributing to extended reality by way of data or input or contribution, a likeness and image. And we look at this technology as something that's extending, that's coming on top of this foundation of artificial intelligence, these models that have been deployed out into the world, highly proficient and quite capable. These things that we interact with today by texting and prompting, if you will be able to interact with us in more fluid, seamless ways that are almost indiscernible to human perception. And at the same time, machine perception will kick in. Yeah, at the same time, when we think about deployment, this is a rather interesting time of life, because if you look at XR, extended reality, glasses and virtual reality headsets, they certainly come with their cost. And traditionally, at many times, they have not been deployed around the world. So accessibility, William, is a big deal, which we're about to hard into you, and then we're going to route into everyone else. Accessibility has been a big deal in terms of access. It's a little bit different now because the new juggernaut has come on the scene. It has arrived, and it supersedes every single technology within the eco-habitat, and it's called artificial intelligence. And it's highly accessible. If you have common Wi-Fi and a decent device, you have it. It's unlike other different devices that need to be consumed, go through supply chains, what have you. William, I see a severe disconnect and disbalance happening and arriving in the world when these quite extraordinarily capable tools that XR has, that there will be so much of the world that has these tools and so much of these worlds that either A, can't afford it or don't even have the opportunity to access. You're someone that's traveled around the world and teaching this particular type of technology. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
I think one of the things that we have to really watch out for is accessibility and equitability. It's great to have the access and the tech, but we can't forget that there, like you were saying, there are going to be people that have no access or very little access with these technologies to use to benefit themselves. And we have to, as an old school term, reach back and make sure there's equal accessibility and equal access, even if you have to minimize the current tech a little bit so that people that do not have the high-tech smartphones can access it, are able
Sure.
to. When we look at the human element, everybody wants the newest and greatest devices, but it comes to affordability that everyone can't afford it. But we have to look at how we can provide access, how we can provide accessibility, but also one of the things that was focused on is training to do it. Aida and I equate AI as if you give a 14 or 15-year-old keys to your Corvette, but you don't provide them any training, ultimately there's going to be a major accident. So there needs to be also professional development and to teach our youth, teens, and young adults how to access the AI, how to use it, how to use XR and all the iterations that go with it. Because if you don't, as we see now that's happening, young people are doing inappropriate things. They're getting caught up in environments they have no understanding, and it's slowly causing negative effects to personal self-esteem, bullying, cyberbullying, and all the other elements. So we really have to look at making it equitable, making it capable that people can access it, but also providing professional development and training.
You know, I find that they're very interesting, and the other side of things, when there's a deficiency in not teaching, especially our younger generations, the proper use case and of alignment when it comes to actual any technology for that matter. But it tends to be able to compound or scale this thing of your very disposition and how people will use it negatively or affirmatively when it comes to any of these emerging technologies and devices And how do we inspire a generation within education, Chantel? How do we give them and impress upon them the need to be able to use this for good, the need to be able to extend reality for betterment instead of for self-aggrandizement? But please, Chantel, give us more on that.
So I'd like to build a little bit on what William was speaking about, and I'd just like to talk about representation. You know, I feel like our tech is just moving so fast and we're all jumping on the bandwagon. If we look at the explosion of AI over the last year or two, we're shifting, changing, adapting, growing, and we haven't even learned the fundamentals yet.
Right.
We need to just come back to representation. And we've got to come back to the fact that we are these tech models. This extended reality is supposed to serve people. Who are the identities of the people that our systems are supposed to serve? What are our cultural contexts of these models that we're building and these solutions that we're building? Do we incorporate local languages? Do we create something that allows our people to be represented effectively? And then tacked onto that, we've got to start catching up on that education curve. You know, and I don't have a solution for it, but I just want to say that education curve, I learn new stuff every day. How the hell are our kids supposed to keep up with this? You know?
Sure.
So, yeah.
You know, I tend to think that if we don't begin teaching the world, and it's multi-generation, not even the young people. In fact, the young people that I submit are catching up onto this quicker than even our more mature audiences, if you will. And when I say young, high school on down, they are understanding this technology because this is the world that they're propagating. And similar to many of us, when I came into the world at a very younger age, a thing called Google showed up. I had no instruction manual. My teachers didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to operate it. They said, this is called Google, and this is called the Oregon Trail. Use it. And then whatever minimal direction was available, all I was given in this world was a search bar. And I had to figure it out for myself, how to move there and how to be able to navigate there, which is very interesting when it comes to literacy of technology. On the very first thing that showed up was the protocol, if you will, HTTP IP. But beyond that, Obagafan, I tend to think about when we look at disruption that if we aren't the ones educating the world, then something else will. Let's think about those words again, because I want to hear your expressions on that. If we do not begin to teach the world of these technologies, human, then something else will, machine. They're more than happy to be able to step into the environment and to be able to fill the gaps of what humans have not fulfilled. What are your thoughts on that, Obagafan? Thomas, we'll get to you after. As quickly as you can, sir, please.
All right, thank you so much. So, yeah, talking about the infrastructure gaps, I want to tell the part of Chantel who talked about the education gap is a very big thing. Education, we need training. We need lots and lots of training in the space. I'm talking from Africa. Apart from the infrastructure deficits, the fact that there is no funding, we do not have these tools. How many people here had a VR headset at all to be able to carry out these experiments? There's also huge gap in the education aspect. So people need to be trained. People need to be educated. In fact, I think and I believe that the schools should incorporate this into the curriculum so that at a younger age, young people should begin to learn about XR, extended realities, and we should begin to let the machine go after the human. What do I mean? The machine should learn to serve the human and not the machine taking over, like we are trying to see it in the era of AI today. So humans should be in charge, humans should be in control, and there should not be a negligence over that. So education, when the education gap is breached, that problem could be solved to a considerable extent. So we need to develop training program.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's important, especially when we talk about XR. Listen, here's to the XR community. Audience, can you hear us? Are you with us? Here's to the XR community, to the XR industry in particular. Not everybody even knows what XR is. They don't know what the metaverse is. They don't know what spatial computing is. They don't know what spatial intelligence is. They don't know what immersive intelligence is. They've never put on a VR headset, and the AR glasses are arriving, and you will not sell those glasses if you do not teach them and teach people a reason to wear those glasses, especially at the price points of what you're wanting to sell these glasses for. I say that to say is this, even if we have WebGL, web interfaces, and Edward, we'll get to that in a second, Thomas, I tend to think that when we start to see this great adoption of these technologies, if we're deficient in education, it takes away the why and the reason. It takes away the power to be able to convey what we talked about yesterday when it comes to storytelling for other people to hear one another, because there's a medium that's been decided that hasn't been colloquially agreed upon in the world. And when I start to think about the deficiency of education, as these machines begin to teach others that have an interest and even have a modicum level of understanding of what it even means, it seems to me mentally that there's going to be massive depression. There's going to be those that feel disbalanced, left out, and they won't feel included in not only the innovation, but the adoption and the subscription of these platforms of what's being deployed in the world. Lastly, I'll say is this, I'll jump on that in a second. Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, I just so there are a couple of things I wanted to say really quickly, because there's been so many great things. One of them, I think that one thing that has not been said is it's so important, especially in education, accessibility, deployment, all these things. And I know it's hard. We can never think of every single person in every single way, but so often when we talk about accessibility, it's important to acknowledge no matter how hard we try, there is going to be someone left out of a conversation. Like I know in particular, I've championed this on GatherVerse summits before, and I've talked to a lot of people about this. I think the great age of this education and of these resources is making things more accessible to people. A large chunk of the communities I work with, they can't leave their home all the time, or there's not a lot of transportation even as an option. A lot of the time there's so much education, so many resources out there, but people don't know how to access it, or they don't know what they can do. Especially within the government level, the amount of people who don't know what they can access and how it works is astronomical. And I think when we look at these kind of tools and education, it can become very convenient to talk about groups that we view as the target audience. But I think it's so important, especially in a digital age, especially with XR, to talk about the people who are forgotten, who are left behind, who are ignored. And part of that reason is, and at its core in accessibility is to be for all people, right? We can't leave people out because it's convenient. But on top of that, I think with technology and in this realm of education, one of the great benefits is education is more accessible to people than it ever has been. There is more information out there. But it's also, I think, a big part of this, and I'm going to try to summarize this really quickly so I don't keep rambling. But I think it's so important when we have these conversations to acknowledge the value of those communities that get left behind. I think these organizations, these people behind this, need to start pulling in people who are not heard, who are not talked to because they are at home and they can't get out, or they have a physical ailment or a mental health ailment. And I truly believe the future of sustainability, the future of infrastructure, all of these things is pulling in those voices to better serve the people who are not in those situations.
Sure.
Because the more community voices we bring in, the stronger the infrastructure is going to be, the stronger the system is. And really, just as an example of this, for so long to get into a building, a lot of the option was just walking upstairs. Or it was, sometimes you would have to have you've had staircases in a home. The problem with that is not designed for a massive chunk of humanity. It never was. And so as we've seen in recent decades and recent evolution, accessibility is evolving, but it's because we're pulling in voices from all communities. And yes, we have a long way to go.
Let me interject for a second, because I don't want the train to go too far off the tracks here. And I really like what you said, and it's moving at a rapid clip, what you just expressed. What I really appreciate that, Edward, is about human culture. We talk about ecoculture, these human characteristics that are permeated in and throughout technological ecosystems themselves. And I really believe that the world just categorically does not understand the inherent benefit when we start to begin to talk about cultural development and foundational development. This is the sole reason that accessibility is so important, because what we're actually contributing, everyone has their own unique IP to be able to contribute to technology itself. And the more culture we add ecologically to the ecosystem that we all share, the stronger that ecosystem becomes. The less culture, the more homogenized in culture that and ecosystems that are built in homogeneity, the less of the strength of the ecosystem itself. In other words, we go from a monocultural perspective or development to a polycultural perspective, and that is key. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at right now. Edward, what are some of your thoughts? Because I know that you want to champion accessibility, especially XR, for women in particular. That's a culture. That's not just something that we look at and say it's a feel-good thing to do. This is beyond feel-good an initiative. This is an imperative for the foundation of the construction of technology itself. And to be candid, when it comes to my AI models, I don't want my models to be completely made by one class or one specific group of people. Give me the whole bowl or nothing at all. Go ahead, Edward.
Well, one thing, I'm gonna try. I might jump a little bit, but it'll come all together. I do a lot of speaking for junior achievement, right? So, and it's mostly youth, all the way from 3rd grade to seniors and going into college. I ask them 3 questions all the time. I say, how many of you, play video games, listen to music, and watch videos on your devices? 100% of them raise their hands. And then I ask them again, how many of you have heard of AI? And I just say AI. 100% of them raise their hands. Then the 3rd question I ask, how many of you have heard that AI is going to take your job? 100% of them raise their hand. So that's the mindset. And all of these corporations, and this is where I say it's going to jump a little bit. One thing about the media, as far as like music, video, is putting out a lot of garbage, as far as the kids from a learning perspective and things like that. And the video games, a lot of video games are violent and whatnot. It's not a lot of learning games. And the reason being is not profit in that. The big gaming companies, they think the only way they can make money is if it's violent, and nobody is really trying to do things. And my grandmother told me something a long time ago. I won't get into the whole story. She said, you have to do well before you do good. I didn't understand what she meant back then, but I got it now. What she meant was, whatever you're doing on the front end, you need to do it very well so you can make a lot of capital, a lot of money, you get a lot of people involved, and then you can do good, whether we buying laptops for people or we getting other corporations that come in on the well side to do that. So to wrap mine up, is we doing work for corporations. They got the money. So that's the well side. So, and you'd be surprised, these big corporations, they don't know a lot about AI. Most of them are still using Chat GPT. They're bringing in consultants to use generative AI to, start doing a lot of things. But in general, they don't have it, but the gaming companies are too expensive to bring that type of technology down. And as far as accessibility, that's just a matter of target audience, the objectives of the content, and delivery. So if a corporation needs full blast, their target audience got everything. If not, if you just need, some really nice, you can use WebGL. Our platform can deploy to any one of those, to the high end that the corporations need, or to the low end that we can still reach the youth. And then lastly, part of my organization, we already started. We've got a movie studio, we're developing music, and of course we can develop video games. And our main mission is we're only going to develop positive and uplifting media. And through that messaging, we're going to be training people how to, this goes back to you, Chantel. And all of the video games, and my son plays them, the blacks are always the bad guy. In all of the video games, I pick one. They always say, if Somebody needs to balance that out. If you look at all of the gaming Microsoft, Apple, all of them, the top 10 games are all negative. They're all negative impact. Somebody needs to address that. So that's what the goal of my mission is to develop that and move forward.
All right, good deal. And I like that the fact that you brought up the dichotomy of education. Meni, we're coming up to you. I think this is important because let's be really clear right now, audience. When we talk about there are those in need of education, we're not just talking about underserved communities. We're talking about these corporate executives on down and everyone in between, because a lot of them are getting bad advice from consultants. I know this to be true. People that think they understand Gen AI, they picked up the book for the first time, they have a consultant moniker, and now they're prepared to be able to teach the world. And a lot of these corporations are being misguided and misunderstanding when it comes to the deployment of understanding all of these emerging technologies. In other words, I believe that most technologists have the need to go back to school again. How real is that? But I'll hold off on that before I end up having war here in GatherVerse, but I believe it's true. All these tech, just because you label yourself and title yourself a technologist, now that you're equipped with AI, turn on the camera, turn on the light, let me see what you really know. Take all the space in between us, remove all the digital devices, and let's see what an actual technologist is, because there are real technologists out here and they're being overshadowed by these so-called technologists, and it's bad information that's being deployed to everyone in all the spaces in between. So I'm just saying, if you're going to be a technologist, my heart to you is to keep it real. You can be a technologist on day one, but don't run the hype on what it is that you're deploying and educating, because the people that you're educating are going to take your words as gospel, and they're going to be severely impacted by your vanity. But that's a whole different that's a whole different narrative, and perhaps we'll have a whole summit on that called Hype Summit. Come GatherVerse 2026. Meni, what are your thoughts on the need for education and the gap in between, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe that we need to take the new face of education very far. If I remember when the internet first was introduced into Nigeria, we had what we call cyber cafes. And I had the experience of spending much time in the cyber cafe overnight doing the needful to see how I can educate myself. However, today the era of cyber cafes have come and gone. They no longer exist as much. There's only few. And I'm looking forward to a time where every child in Africa will have access to education at the remote angle, not just in the remote region where there are underserved communities, but also in the cities. And I have a business model for
But
that.
Meni, before you go there, what is the barrier to entry? What is the barrier to teaching every child in Africa? Let's just unravel this right now.
Yes, the barrier is that is finances. There are no resources. The resources are being diverted into political adventures. They are not for educational purposes, even if they are there in the budget. Government don't spend that money for the purpose. Two, the enlightenment campaign is not large. Most persons are just claiming to know, but they don't really know, because like it's saying, when you are not informed, you are already deformed. There are more deformed persons in Africa because they are not informed with the current technology we have. Then we also look at the third aspect, is that issue of being inferior. People feel inferior, that these technologies are too advanced. They are not for us now. But the question comes, when will it come to you? Because when you wait for the technology to come to you, by that time you are pretty old, you don't have the strength to understand anything. And then you say, wow, this is over. Now, I'm looking for a way where we can solve these problems once and for all. And I have a business model that will solve that problems. And I spoke to my guys over here in Canada that, look, we are going to operate from here over to Africa and have every center in every country in Africa to have what we call a rebranded virtual labs, XRO, VRO, and tour centers.
Wait, Meni, so are you telling me that you're on the quest to be able to teach and to educate every child in Africa? Is this what you're telling us right now, live at GatherVerse?
Telling you, I'm telling you
what you're telling us right now. Then everybody that's sitting here watching GatherVerse right now, he just said the biggest barrier to entry is financial. Let's connect with Meni and see if there's a way to be able to support this effort. And Meni, we want you to be receptive to the people that are willing to come and to be able to assist you in this effort, to be able to pursue it. We do not have enough time to be able to cover all the ground that's needed in order to be able to touch on the things that need to be rendered out to be able to accomplish this mission. But we're going to put a narrative on this.
Okay.
We're going to put a narrative on this that Meni cannot do this alone. He needs help and support to be able to teach every child in the continent and every child in the world. It's that simple. This is part of what GatherVerse does. We don't want to leave these expressions in these digital boxes. We need to go and climb outside of this, because if we do not teach our children, then something else will. Obagafan, what do you have on that?
All right, quite amazing, Meni. So I was listening and I was very immersed and so excited at the opportunity that Meni want to bring. So I am in Africa right now. I'm in Nigeria, and yes, we are aware of the technology. I work here in a tech hub where we have hundreds of young people my age in 20s, 30s. We have them right here with me in their hundreds, and they are working with AI, they are working with emerging technologies. So we are aware, and then we need the infrastructure.
Obagafan, you're in Nigeria?
Yeah.
There's millions. It's one of the biggest, in Lagos alone, it's one of the biggest, most populated cities, not let alone in the continent, in the world. There are millions that are needed this education. Please continue.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to hear from Meni that he wants to bring this opportunity. So young people are aware, young people my age in our 20s and 30s, we are so engrossed in technology. We are doing amazing things with AI and emerging tech and VR. So we need the technology and we need the education. Like myself, Prof, have been teaching us, William Jackson, since 2023. He has been with me and my startup, and we've been doing amazing things. Right now, we have a partnership with Google to train on the Google Career Certificate. I post it every time on my LinkedIn. And then, so when Meni brings the amazing opportunity in VR, we want to set up labs so young people can go there, elderly persons, and learn the hands-on. So we know much of the theories. We can do some stuff with a laptop, but we need access to resources like VR headset. We need access to the AI smart glasses, and then we can do even more and more from there.
Here's what I think is profound, and thank you for sharing that, Obagafan, and hopefully we'll have some minutes to be able to get back to you as well. When I sit here and think about the magnitude of this, William, this opportunity that we give, and we want it to be brief. Here we have Meni, here we have Obagafan that are saying, listen, we're dedicating our time, our minimum resources that we have, because we know they're not funded, they're bootstrapping. We're dedicating our minimum resources to be able to teach those in the populace around us. I will say this, if you're looking at Meni and Obagafan audience, because they're over in the continent, if you're looking and saying that continent needs more education, I'm saying right here in Silicon Valley and the ground zero of AI, there is education that is needed here as well. And we are going to see in this great global AI arms race, while we're so busy heavily investing in unicorns and billions and trillions of dollars in investment in building out these foundational models, don't make the mistake that simple education is needed. Education is needed more than the next model. We already have 1 million models that we can't even keep up with, let alone the world is about to adopt this machine species. And this machine species is looking at us with computer vision. It's speaking at us with concatenated synthesis, parametric synthesis. It is about to enter into our lives. We are ill prepared. It seems to me that two of the most advanced people we have in the world just spoke right here at this roundtable, because they understand that technologists need to become educators. I can't reemphasize this enough. William, please.
Well, I wanted to say, since I retired in 2022, my wife and I, we made the decision that a lot of our efforts would be in Africa and Latin America, not because we're not concerned about what's happening here in the United States, but the mentality and the thinking has to change. We talked about gaming. We talked about entertainment. There's too much gaming and entertainment thought processes here in the United States. And one of the issues are our young people have so much access to technology. One, they take it for granted. Two, they're using it to try to make quick money, and the mindset needs to change. And also, when we're talking about education, we're not talking about classroom education. We're talking about education in the broad spectrum of the community. So when I was teaching in my last 2 years in the middle school, we came up with programs and curriculums to teach young people how to use AI, how to use VR, how to speak at conferences. So during that iteration of those times, the students received it because they showed that they were creative, they were innovative, but unfortunately, in many cases, in the educational system in the United States, that is not promoted. It's not given an opportunity to blossom in our students. The works that are being done globally emphasize creativity, innovation, imagination, which is great, but also the soft skills of cooperating together and collaborating together that you can see here in this great panel. Our works, my wife is Puerto Rican, so we try to do as much work as we can in Puerto Rico, Latin America, because those are blossoming communities. If you look at the things that we're doing in social media, blending Latin America and Africa, because of the historical connections with that a lot of people deny, we are trying to teach and model and share content through AI training. So we're doing 3 AI workshops now. My wife, Aida, she's working remotely in Uganda, teaching girls and women how to be business owners with the resources they have in the middle of Uganda. So it's great works, but it can be challenging because, like you talked about, the lack of access. And I'm gonna put this out there. Governments across Africa, they have the money, they have the finances, they have the ability to provide access to their citizens. They just have to choose to do that.
Let me say, William, before you go further, and there's quite a bit to unearth, and we have some minutes left. I must say, the other reason that the intimacy of education, this is the last generation, us right now in 2025. This is the last greatest generation of human innovation and human education that will ever exist for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. This time next year will be more human and machine. Right. As we continue to move forward, I submit to you that machines will be doing the majority of education in this world. We can't compete. Right. Take advantage of it now. And one of the biggest reasons why we don't want to just teach people what these technologies are today. We need to get into a hive mind global cloud consensus corpus to start to teach the educators and teach those who we educate, what are we going to do after these jobs that we have are no longer available and afforded to us? How do we come together to innovate what's next? This has happened since the agrarian times. Mm-hmm. This has happened in Industrial 1, Industrial 2, the information age, applications renaissance. We have never been this way before. Not every set of people that walk the face of this earth, and not every generation that lives on this earth experiences the great transition from one state to the other. Right. We just so happen to be in a generation where we are going to understand what it means of severe and true disruption, and we must be prepared now. And the only way that we're going to do that through grace, mercy, and education. Santel, what do you have on that? Mm-hmm.
You read my mind. You could see my responses forming there. I love the way this conversation is going with regards to education, but I come again from a whole person perspective. And if we look at our upcoming generations that are entering the workforce at the moment, Gen Z and Generation Alpha, and they are, or research studies have shown us that they are the most anxious and least resilient generation to date. Wow. These are our future leaders. What are we doing to support them? And we've got a fantastic opportunity with AI and XR and generative learning and all of this sort of thing. But we've got to remember that sometimes the solution can also be the problem, and vice versa.
That's right.
So as much as XR can help, and it can create it can foster the sense of connection and support in ways that I never had when I was young, for instance, it can also create disconnection. And it can also enhance that anxiety that our young people are feeling. We've got to come in tandem. We've got to start looking at how do we support their mental health through the generative learning, through extended reality, in partnership with real human connection. And that is my absolute passion. We cannot forget the mental health of these youngsters, our future leaders.
I completely agree, Chantel and Thomas. It seems to me that it's more prudent than ever to be able to teach from a human heart as opposed to teaching from a machine. What do you got?
I absolutely agree. With so much of what is said, I just want to say, Chantel, thank you for saying what you said. I do want to preface one thing that gives me so much hope about these new generations and the younger generations is the preface of mental health. I think it's more of a discussion than it has been ever in humanity. I think part of that is so much because of the anxiety and the worry that younger generations have right now. But I think one thing that's really fantastic about that is, speaking on just human heart, we are also in a time where we can shape our education, where we can shape our technology, where we can shape our conversations as human beings on emphasizing empathy and compassion and wisdom and emotional intelligence into how we use technology.
Sure.
I have so much of a hope that as we go forward, and I'm not saying it's going to be like rose glasses, everything's going to be perfect. It's never that case with humanity all the time. But I think when it comes to technology, if we start teaching people how to apply technology, how to apply XR in an empathic, loving, compassionate way where we can move therapy or other programs onto this, but also put at the heart of it human well-being and human compassion, we can create a pathway to, I think, a more loving society. I know right
we will
now,
create a pathway, not just
Yes,
can, but we will, Thomas. We will.
Absolutely.
And here's the deal. And we have to move on to Edward, and then we'll move on to everyone else for a quick 30-second go around, because I have a final question for each of you. It seems to me, Edward, I find myself finding more respect for someone. Listen, I have more respect for someone that can teach 1 billion people as opposed to making $1 billion.
Exactly. But the key is you find those people where you can make $1 billion off of doing stuff for them, which will give you the money to reach those billion people. Because if you think about it, this technology is not that expensive. Chromebooks and things like that. And most people get internet access. So it's not a gigantic barrier to get a lot of this technology to the youth. It's just the access to capital is all up.
And let me say this too, though, because I know a lot of us want headsets and Chromebooks, and we want desktop tablets, laptops. You know what? We have at our fingertips some of the most extraordinary, powerful technology we've ever had before. If we just connect the dots, why does Google, Apple, and all these other platforms have to be the ones that we have to go to gain access? Build our own.
But and the key is, and that's kind of what I'm doing here, building an army of women that know how to create this stuff. A lot of your creators are creating garbage. And the great equalizer now is AI. You can use generative AI to develop, instead of making a copy of Michael Jackson cussing, you make a generative AI young lady that's telling you kind of what Mr. Wilson is talking about. Go out and meet with your friends. AI is just a tool to deliver a message, period. And now that tool is available to anybody. So you got good and you got bad. The bad is kicking our butt, because they're just out here just creating all this garbage, but nobody has the initiative of training people how to use this technology for positive means. And I'll close with this. All the kids now, their faces in screens 80 to 90% of the time. If they're not in school and school don't take their phones, we need to access those. And Chris, you hit it right on the head. now is the time to get to the youth and young adults, not just high schoolers, telling them about this AI, how they can use it, how they can be a user and not just a doer of something, so the user of AI won't get replaced, and move forward with that. But it has to be a movement in that area to reach those screens, to give the messaging, to get with this AI so you can use it for your future.
Okay, so Edward, we're going to start with the 20-second kickoff, and we're going to pass the mic around to each of you. I've never done this before at a GatherVerse Roundtable. This is going to set a precedent, but we're doing it now. What is your commitment towards human betterment at the innovative level?
I'll go first.
You got 20 seconds and less.
20 seconds. I'm not counting. Basically, we're going to work with young women in order for them to learn enough to where not only can they do work for money, but they can also, help their own get into this AI space.
Great. We'll hold it to you. We'll hold you to it. We'll see you next year. Thomas.
My commitment is just making sure that all community voices are heard. All people are taught how to live their best healthy life using technology, but also that we can go forward and create sustainable pathways forward for mental health, education, and for humanity in general.
We'll hold you to it. We'll see you next year. Thank you. Obagafan, quickly, please.
Yeah, currently I'm committed to training young people in the inner city communities on the Google Career Certificate. I lead what is called Google Developer Groups. One of the Google Developer Groups in Nigeria is a third-party organization associated with Google, which we have, we get scholarship and funding from people of like minds to train people in the inner city community on different tech skills. So I've been running that for the last 3 years.
Good. I'm personally holding it to you. I'll see you next year. Meni.
Yeah, my commitment is I'll be kickstarting very soon an apprenticeship program using XREvolve for the Nigerian youth and Africa at large, then even giving them remote jobs. I work together with a partner in Pakistan. We just launched a platform for remote jobs. So we are going to make sure while you are being trained on these skills, you'll be given a job so that you have something in your pocket if you choose to continue your career in the university.
Meni, I want all the children in the continent to be educated. I want you to stay on that path. And audience, I want you to connect with Meni. Meni, if I do not see this by the time next year, and when you show up here, if it's not happening, then it tells me everything I need to know. William.
I will make sure it happens.
See you next year. William.
Yeah.
I would say this, my wife and I remain committed internationally to teach about positive uses of AI, VR, VRE, IoT, and the growth of what we're doing, being certified. So we're certified in all those areas to empower ourselves to internationally teach youth, teens, and young adults to be business owners and entrepreneurs and improve their community. So that's
GatherVerse support William and Miss Ada. Support them. Even if it's just a word of encouragement, support them. Don't turn your back on them. Chantel.
My commitment is to help people shed the beliefs that are holding them back because they have no idea of the potential they have. So I'm going to help people shape or change the way they see themselves, because then the sky is the limit. They can become the innovators and technologists and teachers and trainers of the future.
And my commitment, and we'll hold you to it, Chantel. We'll see you next year as well. Nobody's off the hook today. And my commitment, and you hold me to it, my commitment is to continue to drive and to be able to propagate and to be able to highlight these incredible leaders that assemble with us from around the world at a place called GatherVerse.org. That's my commitment. I'll hold it to you. All right, panel, we're out.